Hometown Ghost Stories contains serious and often distressing events and is not intended for all audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
On November 22nd, 1963, President John F. Kennedy was shot and killed by the CIA, probably. Now, his disembodied ghost lingers behind, roaming the natural world. I'm Dave Wilkins, and this is Hometown Ghost Stories, Celebrity Hauntings, JFK. There's an X painted on the street in Dealey Plaza where JFK died, and many visitors to the spot have felt the cold presence of an otherworldly being accompanying them. Many believe this to be the spirit of President John F. Kennedy.
What is going on, folks, and welcome to Hometown Ghost Stories, Celebrity Hauntings, where we talk about celebrities who may still be haunting after their death. I'm Jesse Wilkins. I'm joined by Rob Coakley. Hello, Rob.
Some are saying it's the most aptly named segment that we do, and I would agree.
It is pretty straightforward. It is, and we're joined by Dave, who's bringing us the tale of JFK's haunting. Hello, Dave.
Hello. Most of this is not really a tale, but historical events. I guess the haunting part could be a tale.
I am aware that JFK was a real person who did exist and is in fact dead. A lot of people saw that happen, but yes, the haunting is something I have not heard of a JFK haunting. I did hear of a Marilyn Monroe haunting, but
right.
Those are a little bit intertwined, I suppose.
Yeah,
they were a little intertwined, I suppose.
Oh, damn. But yeah, let's just jump right into it. Let's talk about John Fitzgerald Kennedy and his life. He was born on May 29th, 1917, just outside of Boston in a town called Brookline, Massachusetts. Kennedy's father, a businessman and politician, amassed a private fortune and established trust funds for his 9 children that guaranteed lifelong financial independence.
Bootleggers!
Yeah,
Bootlegger!
Businessman, politician, and known fucking mafia member, but yeah, we could leave that out.
Yeah. John's first exposure to politics was touring the Boston wards with his grandfather during his failed gubernatorial campaign in 1922. In 1927, due to a polio outbreak, the Kennedy family moved to Riverdale, New York, but often visited their summer home in Hyannisport, Massachusetts on Cape Cod. John and his older brother, Joe, were prepped for politics for their entire upbringing. John, always trying to keep up with his older brother, compensated by being rebellious, notoriously exploding a toilet with a firecracker. In the next chapel assembly, the headmaster, George St. John, brandished the toilet seat and spoke of muckers, who would spit in our sea, leading Kennedy to name his group of friends the Muckers Club.
What is muckers?
I don't know. I think it might be like a old-timey slang term for hoodlums or hooligans.
All right, you keep reading. I'm going to get to the bottom of this.
Makes me uncomfortable.
JFK graduated high school in 1935 and was voted most likely to succeed before he went on to Harvard University, where he developed an interest in political philosophy. He graduated.
They did a pretty good job with that voting. I do wonder if there's anybody from his political class who was more successful. I'm sure people made more money, maybe, but he became the goddamn president of the United States of America. So I'd say they were pretty spot on with their nomination there.
Yeah, I agree with that. And he immediately went to Harvard, so he kind of just hit the ground running with that little nomination.
Muckers is 2 definitions. One is a person who removes dirt and waste, especially from stables, and the other is a rough or coarse person.
So they obviously went with the first one.
It's the latter. I actually knew about the first one. I think that was in Monty Python. They were the Holy Grail. They were mucking in the swamp there. Anyways, back to I wasn't expecting a Monty Python reference in this JFK history.
Honestly, I didn't think they were doing anything useful in that movie. I thought they were literally just making piles of dirt and being like just weird, dirty peasants.
Yes. But that is kind of what mucking is, as we've just learned.
Yes.
So he graduated in 1940 with a Bachelor in Arts of Government. In 1941, he enlisted in the Navy and joined the Office of Naval Intelligence. He was unhappy being stuck behind a desk in Washington, D.C., so he requested to be transferred to a torpedo boat, which sounds like a huge step up as far as excitement goes. And it was. He was originally denied due to his chronic health issues, but with the help of his father's influence, along with a Massachusetts senator, he was assigned to the PT-109 in the South Pacific in 1943. After seeing lots of action and suffering injuries that qualified him for a Purple Heart, he was relieved of active duty in December the same year. So the injury that he got when he was over in the South Pacific fighting on this torpedo boat was they got broadsided by a Japanese boat that was coming at them. Their job was to create a blockade so the enemy ships couldn't get through, and the ship just drove right through them and snapped the ship. So wow. The people that were on the PT-109 were killed, but JFK, who was injured, despite his injury, actually grabbed one of his co-workers, sailors, and actually swam him to shore while injured. And his injury was bad enough that he was qualified for the Purple Heart. Unfortunately, John's older brother, Joe, wasn't as lucky. He was killed in an air mission on August 12th, 1944. Joe had been the Kennedys' family political standard bearer, but after his death, the responsibility fell to John. He went on to run for and win a seat in the U.S. House of Representatives in the 1946 elections. He served for 6 years until he made a run for the Senate in 1952, with his younger brother Robert serving as his campaign manager. He won narrowly. In the following year, he married Jacqueline Bouvier. In 1960, he ran for president of the United States against the incumbent Vice President Richard Nixon, who he defeated, becoming the nation's youngest president. Kennedy immediately inherited Eisenhower's plan to overthrow the communist Castro regime in Cuba. He campaigned a hardline stance against Castro while running for office, and now he felt he couldn't back away from it. The operation was led by the CIA, who put a massive amount of pressure on the young president to move onward with it, and he eventually approved of the plan on April 4th, 1961. This was the Bay of Pigs, and it was an unmitigated disaster.
Crazy disaster.
Yeah, not good. It was just, not to get too much into the Bay of Pigs, but the plan was the CIA wanted to stage this basically revolution, and for former Cuban residents, basically, they wanted it to look like they came back and bombed Castro, but the U.S. mission failed. They bombed all the wrong places and they didn't kill anybody that they needed to, and it was just a huge failure. He faced massive amounts of backlash from the media and from the American people. Now, Kennedy was furious at the CIA's failure and their initial pressure to move forward with the operation, and he vowed that he was going to splinter the CIA. So he now has the vendetta against the CIA. Over the course of his presidency, he clashed with Castro many times, leading to Operation Mongoose and the Cuban Missile Crisis.
More like Clastro, am I right?
They should just make the world leaders fight each other. Like that's how you should get elected. Like if we have an issue with Cuba, you just have to fight Fidel Castro.
He should have splintered the CIA by putting the Ninja Turtles in there with Splinter as the leader.
Do a Splinter impression.
No, that'll sound racist, and I'm not going to do that.
I don't think that. It does kind of sound fun having the world leaders fight each other, just fist fight instead of going to war. Just have the leaders duke it out.
Yeah, just send out your champion.
I love it. I think that would be a lot of fun. In 1963, Kennedy was beginning his campaign for re-election. On November 22nd of that year, he was traveling in a motorcade through Dealey Plaza in Dallas, Texas, when he was shot once in the back, the bullet exiting through his neck, and once in the head. A video that was later released appeared to show a third bullet striking him in the front of his head, throwing his head back, suggesting a second shooter. Last year, a member of his security team came forward with new information that seems to support the theory of a second shooter. The president was pronounced dead at Parkland Hospital 30 minutes after the shooting, and Lee Harvey Oswald was quickly arrested for the murder. He denied shooting anyone and claimed that he was a patsy. He never had a chance to stand trial, however, because he was shot 2 days later by a local nightclub owner named Jack Ruby. His
In fairness, they probably could have pronounced him dead right then and there. I understand you got to do the paperwork, but there was no fixing that.
I also like that we're having a quick side conversation, and I was laughing still, and the first sentence you come back with while I'm laughing is "the president's dead." And I was just, I'm going to look like the biggest asshole of all time on this episode.
Yeah, I like it. His assassination is arguably the most controversial murder in American history. Kennedy was buried at Arlington National Cemetery in Virginia, but many have claimed to witness his ghost in the years since his death. So
this is news to me. It really is. Not JFK being dead, the ghost.
Yes,
that breaking news banner again. But I have never heard of a JFK haunting, so this is interesting.
Yeah, it's not one of the more famous celebrity hauntings. Everyone knows about the ghost of Marilyn Monroe, and they hear about the ghost of Elvis is probably the most famous, but JFK is a lesser known one, and I had to do a little bit of digging to find it. But I knew that there were hauntings tied to this, and I thought that the case was interesting enough to talk about. I will address in the very opening, I said he was shot by the CIA. That might be somewhat of a controversial take. It is widely accepted that Lee Harvey Oswald was the shooter, but there is a lot of evidence, some of it even coming out recently, that suggests the idea of a second shooter. Now, I have to ask you guys, have you seen the Zapruder film?
Yes, like 137,000 times, I think.
Right.
What, the actual assassination video?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
So the shooter theory was that he was shot from behind because the bullet entered the back of his neck, came out, or entered his back, came out his throat, and then went into the governor that was sitting in the front seat. And that's the magic bullet theory. So he was shot from behind, but in the video, you see him go down after he gets shot from behind, and then you see his head get blown back from the front, and there's a clear shot to the face. And you can't, Lee Harvey Oswald could not have been both behind him and in front of him, at least not in that order, because where the building was positioned, the car was driving away from it. So it would be one theory if he got shot in the face first and then shot in the back, because maybe the car was driving by the location of the shooter, but it didn't happen in that order. So you watch that video, and it's in my opinion undeniable that he got shot from two different directions. And if that's the case, what is the Warren Commission coming out so fast and labeling this as Lee Harvey Oswald as a sole shooter, and he mysteriously gets shot by a random nightclub owner 2 days later? It's definitely it makes me scratch my head. I don't like to get big into conspiracy theories, but I don't even know if I would consider this like a conspiracy theory.
No, you see it all the time in shootings. I mean, there was just an assassination attempt a couple of weeks ago, obviously, and they immediately came out and said, no, it was one shooter. And I was like, it's kind of quick to just immediately determine that. I know you had one dead body in that one, and we don't have to dwell on that assassination attempt, but to be so quick to determine that there was only one shooter, I feel like there should have been, you should leave that door open and investigate more possibilities. It just seems like whenever there's an assassination attempt, it seems like the government is so quick and the Secret Service is so quick to say, we figured it out, the threat's eliminated, we figured it out, we did our job.
Sense of control, right? Like they want to show that we're in control. We know everything. We've figured it out. Not to worry, not to panic. So that's what I think it.
Yeah, and it's very important to do so. You obviously don't want people to think that there's still an active shooter going around. So it's crazy. It is a crazy thing. Now, yeah, upon watching that video, and I've seen it so many times, like I honestly thought he got shot more from like not necessarily right from the side, but it felt like it was like a little bit to the front, to the side. But it clear like. He got shot in the face, dude. You can't do that if you're behind him.
Right. So I think there had to be a second shooter. And the way that the Warren Commission justified the single shooter theory was with the magic bullet theory. And that theory says that a 3 centimeter long, 1.2 copper jacketed lead core rifle bullet fired from the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository passed through President Kennedy's neck into the Governor Conley's chest, went through his right wrist, embedded itself in Conley's left thigh. If so, this bullet traversed a back brace, 15 layers of clothing, 7 layers of skin, and approximately 15 inches of muscle tissue, and pulverized 4 inches of Connolly's rib and shattered his radius bone. The bullet was found on a gurney in the corridor at Parkland Memorial Hospital after the assassination. And the Warren Commission found that this gurney was the one that had carried Governor Connolly. So the way that they justified this was the bullet was found on Governor Connolly's gurney. Therefore, it went through JFK and then went through Connolly second and ended up on his gurney. So they're hinging this theory on the fact that that bullet was found on the gurney. Now,
would it fall out of him onto the gurney?
Here's what happened. So last year, one of the members of the Secret Service came forward and said, I have to admit to something that I've been keeping a secret since the shooting. He said he found that bullet in the car with Kennedy. So he picked it up thinking it was going to be important, and he didn't know what to do with it. And by the time when they got to the hospital, he said he just placed it on the gurney, and that they found it on Connolly's gurney. So that actually disproves the Warren Commission's theory that it went through in that order, because the bullet was moved after the fact. So their whole theory is kind of hinged on that magic bullet theory, and this testimony kind of debunks it, or at least throws a wrench into it. So it's interesting. Now you might wonder, why was this guy sitting on this information for 60 years? And I think the reason was because they pinned it on Harvey so fast, and they called it an open shut case so fast. This guy might have put 2 and 2 together that if the CIA is behind this, he might want to keep his mouth shut, especially if they just whacked the president.
Right. Or he's just trying to, I don't know. I mean, that could prove a second shooter. Have we ruled out that the gurney could be the second shooter? It's carrying around the evidence.
Well, that doesn't necessarily prove a second shooter. It's at face value. It just disproves the magic bullet theory. Now, the magic bullet theory was put into place because they were saying that that Lee Harvey Oswald could not have reloaded fast enough to be able to get those shots off by himself, because they based it on the frame rates of the Zapruder film. And they said there would have to be at least 45 frame rates in between shots for one person to be able to do it. And there was only 30 frame rates in between. So it's like a fraction of a second difference, but they're saying it would be impossible to make that shot unless there was a second shooter.
Could he have had, first of all, I agree with your theories. Could he have had 2 loaded guns? I know you didn't come up with the theory of, obviously I'm just saying, I believe what you believe, which I think that something's up here.
I guess he could have had 2 different guns, but there was nothing in the Warren Commission that said there were 2 guns, right? There was just the one bolt action rifle. And even so, I don't know if it's more practical for him to fire one shot, put the rifle down, pick up another rifle, and fire off another shot just to save a fraction of a second. What would the point of that be? You just make 2 shots with the same rifle.
Yeah, it's not that hard to reload it. It's just crazy that, upon watching it, it looks like he got shot from 2 angles. So
yeah.
So I want to dive into these hauntings, but I just want to say I was able to go and tour this area a couple years back, and it is very heavy in this location when you're walking through the building, because the building's a museum now, or right by the spot on the street. It is a very heavy feeling.
Yeah, so the 6th floor museum at the Texas School Book Depository in Dealey Plaza is where Lee Harvey Oswald took aim and shot President Kennedy. So you can actually stand at the very spot where he stood 61 years ago. And some people, while standing in this spot, this is at the window, they claim to have been touched by an unseen presence. But most of the visitors who claim to experience this paranormal phenomenon at this location claim to feel just a very heavy feeling of sadness. Now, that's kind of like the main ghost story with this location. For me, I don't think it's all that shocking that you would go into this place that has such heavy impact historically and feel heavy sadness. I think that adds up completely without the paranormal spin.
Especially because you've seen it so many times. Like almost anyone that's gone there and stood in that spot has seen what happened there. So you have that added context versus other locations you go to.
Right. And they've actually kept the outside area preserved to look pretty much as close to what it looked like in 1963 as possible. There's a review that somebody left who visited the area earlier. It's titled Chilling. I wasn't even born when JFK was assassinated, and this place fully raised the hackles on the back of my neck. It is as morbid as it is riveting. Yeah, it's a downright creepy place. What's extraordinary is that the plaza outside is preserved to look exactly like you would have envisioned it in your mind after watching all of the documentaries over your lifespan and viewing the Zapruder film. While the layout mostly involves a narrative of pictures and placards, there's also artifacts packed in here. The plaza outside is also a must-see. So while most of the experience are like this person's experience where they just had a heavy feeling of sadness and almost, I don't want to say nostalgia, but whatever you want to call it, there are some instances of people feeling like they're being touched by an unseen presence. And that they just attribute that to the ghost of JFK, but why would that be the ghost of JFK? Would that possibly be the ghost of Lee Harvey Oswald?
Right. Significant moment in his life as well. He was the one that was up there. That would be where I would lean with it, but we haven't had any sort of visual confirmation on an entity from anything I've ever seen.
Right. So this location doesn't have any recorded sightings that I could find of a physical apparition, but the Union Oyster House is a location where JFK has been seen his apparition. So in the 18th century, before housing the famous...
Talk about the one in Boston, right?
Yes, the one in Boston. In the 18th century, before housing the famous seafood restaurant, the brick four-story house operated as a dry goods shop. Scientists and Boston official Hope Still...
We have to stop you there. We vowed never to cover Haunted Boston. And
that's true.
You fucked up. We just said this on Tuesday that we weren't going to do this, and now we're doing it. Great.
I apologize. Here we are, immediately going to a haunting in Boston. Literally the next thing. It's been minutes. So Boston official Hope Still Capon was the shopkeeper and the artisan responsible for making the fancy garments. Interestingly, during this time, the Boston waterfront came up to the back door of the establishment, allowing Capon to conveniently receive fabrics and other dressmaking materials right to his door. John F. Kennedy was a Union House regular. His spirit is believed to still linger in the dining area and haunt his favorite booth. Now baptized the Kennedy booth, it was located in the upstairs dining room, preferred by the politician because of its privacy. Guests and visitors have claimed to see his apparition sitting at the booth, and some people claim to see his reflection sitting at the booth in the mirror, but when they turn around, the booth is empty.
Ooh. Oh, that's fucking creepy, yeah.
That's a creepy one.
That is very creepy.
Do they also have a John Wilkes booth?
Oh, I wonder.
That has nothing to do with the Kennedy assassination, but you couldn't get away from the booth joke while talking about assassinations.
I don't remember all of them, but there's so many coincidences between the Lincoln and the Kennedy one.
So many.
And one of my not favorites, but like one of the weirdest ones is, I believe Lincoln was shot in the Kennedy Theater, right? Is that what it was? And then Kennedy was riding in a Lincoln.
Something like that, yeah. And also like the shooters, Lee Harvey Oswald goes by three names. John Wilkes Booth, they always refer to it by three names. Right. Not uncommon. I
wonder if John Wilkes Booth was the second shooter in the JFK assassination.
No, Dave, he was long dead.
Oh.
You're wrong.
I don't know. I've read some YouTube comments in the past, and people believe that nobody dies. So.
That's why we're not allowed to joke. We have to clarify these things.
Yeah, maybe he was shot by Oswald and Booth both.
Yeah.
That's fun.
That was fun. My brain shut off for a second there.
There are other ghosts that haunt the Union Oyster House too.
What the fuck, Dave? What the fuck?
More Boston?
We can save it for a future episode. I mean, whatever.
No, we can. No, well, let's recap JFK. This episode is called the Ghosts of JFK, but it is. I should say that there are employees of the Oyster House that say that despite what people have claimed to have seen, that JFK does not haunt the Oyster House, and that the spirits that do haunt are the spirits of other people that maybe we can cover in a future episode.
Like, fuck you, not you. Like those employees. like if I saw JFK, like I saw JFK's ghost, and I understand that like a lot of these hauntings, when it comes to celebrity hauntings in particular, people they experience some sort of phenomenon, and they immediately, because of the location, want to attribute it to that celebrity. Right.
Mm-hmm.
There's a pink mist from Marilyn Monroe's ghost. Well, who's to say that isn't a pink mist from somebody else's ghost who also liked pink? Lots of people liked pink. You know, it's people immediately want to attribute it to a celebrity because they're celebrities and there's really no other reason. So, but honestly, it's like if multiple people are saying that they've seen JFK's ghost at this business, just because you haven't seen it doesn't mean they didn't see what they saw. You know, that's why I say fuck you to that employee. Like, but at the same time, I mean, yeah, it is a haunted building, and that's one of those buildings that you walk by, the Union Oyster House. You walk by it, you're like, that thing looks like an old haunted building. It's super cool. It's almost got like kind of like a Hogsmeade kind of look to it, where it's kind of like a crooked building. You know, you could tell it's just a really, really old building. So that's we've actually hit the limit of how much we could talk about Boston on this episode.
We can never go in there because Jesse has just insulted every single employee that works there. So we've been banned. Thanks, Jesse.
It's all right. We'll edit that. Hey, you know what? Good for you, employee, standing up for yourself. All right, just put that back where I said that.
Well, it'd be one thing if they were saying like there's flickering lights and there's furniture that moves around and unseen presence, and we attribute that to the ghost of JFK. That would be one thing to say, no, it's not. This place is haunted by other people. But it's another thing for people to just say that they see the actual apparition of JFK sitting at the JFK booth. And JFK is a distinguishable guy. He's recognizable. It's a household name. Everyone knows what he looks like. It's harder to just say that, no, that's the ghost of the woman who haunts there. It's like, no, we can clearly see it's JFK.
Yeah, his face looked like it was carved out of wood. You know what JFK looked like.
Yeah, exactly. The other location that JFK allegedly haunts is the Ahwahnee Hotel, or the Ahwahnee Hotel. We covered this location once before. It is in Yosemite National Park. And this hotel was a favorite vacation destination for JFK during his life. And some say the third floor is home to one of the hotel's most important guests, JFK. He stayed there in 1962. Apparently, his back wasn't cooperating with him, so he requested a rocking chair. And since Kennedy's death, people have witnessed the rocking chair moving on its own, even though the chair was removed after Kennedy's stay. So
what are they witnessing?
That last line is confusing.
Yeah, it is confusing to all of us.
But it's not confusing because I wrote it weird. This is just from the source. That's what they say. So
where's the rocking chair and how are you seeing it move?
Right. So they're saying, so I guess it says they're witnessing a rocking chair moving on its own. That would be a weird way to say that they're hearing the sound of a rocking chair. That would be
I take it as there's a new rocking chair. So it's not the same rocking chair that JFK requested. There's a new rocking chair there in its place, but they're seeing that one move. That's how I'm taking it.
That probably makes the most sense. And that probably is precisely what's going on there, is that there's another rocking chair. And if that's the case, then fine, that the spirit is rocking that rocking chair. Because
if I'm a ghost and I want to go rock in my old rocking chair and I show up and my rocking chair is gone, but there's a new rocking chair, like, that'll do. Still going to rock. I came here to rock. I'm here to rock.
Upgrade? Hell yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for the new rocking chair. I'm going to have a seat.
Yeah, absolutely.
Rock back and forth for 3 to 5 minutes.
The other thing it could be is, let's say you got the room and it's nighttime and you wake up to see the shadow of a rocking chair rocking back and forth, and then only to turn on the light and have there be no rocking chair in the room at all.
No, thanks. I don't want
That's
that.
even creepier.
Yeah.
I don't want to see that or hear that. Why do these things come in bunches? Like we just covered another rocking chair one, which is one of the creepiest stories we had. Mm-hmm. And now we get another haunted rocking chair. They just the coincidences sometimes are alarming.
Mm-hmm. They really are. And
I'm never buying a rocking chair is where this is going.
I just wish that the haunting was people wake up and they just hear the voice of JFK saying, "Oh, there's no rocking chair. Jackie!"
That is the haunting of JFK. He haunts those 3 locations. I did look into his house in Hyannisport on the Kennedy compound there that they used to live at, and I couldn't find anything as far as hauntings go there. I don't remember ever hearing of any White House hauntings of JFK.
No,
his ghost there, but that house is packed with so many ghosts that, you know, even if he is a ghost, he might be like, I'm not hanging out here.
There's 2 really unique locations here for him. I mean, the Dallas one speaks for itself. If it was him haunting, we would understand that the circumstances there. But the Union Oyster House and a hotel that he liked to vacation at, I mean, I guess that makes sense, but God, you would just think if it's those two, it would be other places more so that his ghost would be seen than there. Like you said, the White House or one of his other family homes.
Yeah, really. But I couldn't find anything, but that doesn't mean that those stories don't exist.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume that the Oyster House was, I mean, he's got his favorite booth. It's a place he went to. He went to college at Harvard, which is in Boston, so he might have gone there while he was in college too. I mean, there's probably all sorts of reasons why he would haunt that place. The one that I can't get is why would he be haunting the place where Harvey Oswald probably didn't shoot him from, you know?
Right. But I think like the most likely situation would be he's haunting Dealey Plaza where he was shot. I think that adds up for everything that we've learned, these 130 whatever episodes that we've covered, different hauntings, is that sometimes you can create a ghost by violently murdering somebody and they die so fast their spirit almost doesn't realize that they're dead. And there's different opinions on how hauntings work or how spirits work, whether you're religious or occultist or whatever epistemic justification you want to use to ground your theories. But I just think that for me, the one that makes the most sense is where he was killed. Probably
because it was so sudden. Obviously he wasn't dying in a hospital bed for months or years. It was just boom, over. So if anything, I think there could be something residual there where he's still driving around waving to people,
And everyone that goes there is there essentially for him at this point, right? So that the energy that's manifesting there is all related to him.
Yeah, it's another one of those situations where people that are visiting are keeping the story going and continuing to drive energy into that location, and absolutely could lead to a heightened level of hauntings. Very interesting stuff. That is the ghost of JFK. Let us know what you think. Do you think Lee Harvey Oswald was the shooter? Do you think it was the CIA? And do you think his ghost is haunting there, the Oyster House, or wherever else he could be haunting? Yosemite? It's a cool
for one, I'm looking forward to the comments for this video. I can't wait. I'm just so excited.
There's a reason we haven't.
That is precisely why I started my video with he was assassinated by the CIA.
It's a reason we haven't done these in months, is because we have to filter through some pretty wild comments on these celebrity hauntings. But
I live for it.
Yeah, we dug our bed. Now we got to eat net butter.
What?
We dug our toast and now we got to eat butter.
Are we worms? What is happening?
We're not worms. You don't have to clarify in the comments. We are not worms. But let us know what you think. Are we worms? We'll be back next time.
JFK assassinated by worms.
Thank you guys for listening. We'll see you on Tuesday for another live episode.